My best friend of 12 years told me she saw my husband with another woman at restaurants around town but refused to tell me who it was and helped me get divorced. Then I found out she was the other woman all along and they got engaged immediately after. I'm writing this because I need people to tell me if I'm losing my mind or if what happened to me is as calculated as it feels. I've been married to Keith, 35M, for 7 years. We met in college when I was 23 and he was 24. We dated for 3 years before getting married. The wedding was everything people said it should be. Big venue, nice flowers, all our friends and family there. We bought a house right after. It's a quiet neighborhood on the north side of town. Lots of trees, good schools nearby even though we didn't have kids yet. We got a dog named Charlie. He's a lab mix. Keith worked in finance and I work as a project coordinator for a construction company. My friend Kendra, 33F, has been in my life for 12 years. We met at a coffee shop near campus when I was in my junior year. She was working there part-time while finishing her degree. We hit it off right away. She was my maid of honor at the wedding. After Keith and I got married, she started coming over for dinner twice a week. Sometimes 3 times if Keith was working late. She lived about 20 minutes away in an apartment downtown. Keith always said she was like the sister he never had. I thought it was sweet that they got along so well. About 2 years ago, we started trying for a baby. It didn't happen as fast as we thought it would. We went to a clinic on Elmwood Avenue for tests. Everything came back normal for both of us. The doctor said to keep trying and not stress about it. Easy to say. Harder to do. The appointments were always on Thursday mornings. Keith came to the first 3. After that, he said he couldn't keep taking time off work. I went alone to the rest. Around that same time, Keith started staying late at the office. He worked at Henderson Financial downtown. He'd come home after 9 most nights. Sometimes closer to 10. He said they were closing a big deal and everyone had to put in extra hours. On weekends, he started going out with his work friends. He never did that before. When I asked to come along, he said it was just boring work talk and I wouldn't enjoy it. His phone was always face down on the table. He changed his passcode. When I asked why, he said the company required it for security. I didn't push it. Kendra was around more during this time. She'd bring wine or ice cream and we'd watch TV. She listened when I talked about the fertility stuff. She never made me feel bad about it. She'd say things like maybe Keith was stressed about work and that's why he was distant. She suggested couples counseling. Said it might help us communicate better. I brought it up to Keith. He said we didn't need it. He said we were fine and I was overthinking things. Last February, on a Tuesday night, Kendra came over without texting first. She looked different when I opened the door. Her face was tight. She sat down at the kitchen table and said she needed to tell me something. She said she'd seen Keith at restaurants around town with a woman. Not just once. Multiple times over the past few months. She said they looked close. Too close. She wouldn't tell me who the woman was. She said it would hurt too much and I needed to hear it from Keith first. She said she'd been struggling with whether to tell me but she couldn't keep it from me anymore. I couldn't sleep that night. Keith came home around 10. I asked him straight out if he was seeing someone. He didn't deny it. He sat down on the couch and said the marriage hadn't been working for a while. He said we'd become roommates, not partners. He said he didn't want to keep pretending. I asked who she was. He wouldn't say. He said he wanted to protect everyone involved and naming her would only make things messier. He said he wanted a divorce. The next 2 months were a blur. Kendra helped me find a lawyer. Her name was Christina Stone and her office was on Market Street. Kendra drove me to the first appointment because I couldn't stop shaking. She helped me pack up Keith's things. She bought groceries when I forgot to eat. She came over every single day. She told me to take a break from social media. Said it would be better for my mental health to not see everyone's perfect lives while mine was falling apart. I deleted Facebook and Instagram off my phone. The divorce moved fast. Keith wanted it done quickly and I didn't have the energy to fight. We didn't have kids. The house was in both our names. We agreed to sell it and split everything down the middle. Charlie would stay with me. The papers were finalized on a Friday in early May. Kendra took me to lunch that day. She said it was a fresh start. Keith moved his stuff out the weekend before. The house felt empty with just me and Charlie. A week after the divorce was final, my sister Lenora, 28F, called me. She asked if I'd seen Facebook. I told her I'd deleted the apps. She said I needed to log back on. I opened Facebook on my laptop. I had 47 notifications. Most were from the past 2 days. I clicked on one. It was a post from Keith's sister Beth congratulating Keith and Kendra on their engagement. The post was from Saturday. One day after my divorce was finalized. The post had over 200 likes. There were dozens of comments. People I'd known for years were writing things like "so happy for you both and you deserve this." Keith's mom commented saying, "Thank you for being so understanding during this transition." I scrolled through more comments. Multiple people thanked me for being mature about the situation. Someone wrote, "It's beautiful that you gave them your blessing." I never gave anyone my blessing. I didn't even know they were together. I called Kendra. It went straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times. Same thing. I texted her asking what was going on. The message showed as delivered but she didn't respond. 2 hours later, I got a text back. It said she was sorry I had to find out this way. It said she'd been trying to figure out how to tell me. It said what happened between her and Keith started after I'd already decided to get divorced. It said she'd helped me see that the marriage was over so I could move on with my life. It said she'd done me a favor. I called Lenora back. She said she'd been hearing things for weeks but didn't know if they were true. She said people had been talking about Keith and Kendra being together for months. She said everyone thought I knew. She said Keith's family had been telling people that we'd all sat down together back in March and agreed to separate so Keith and Kendra could be together. None of that happened. I was never in a room with both of them after Kendra told me about Keith's affair. I never agreed to anything. Update 1: I've gotten a lot of messages asking what happened after my last post. I should have updated sooner but I needed time to process everything. After I found out about the engagement, I spent a few days just trying to understand the timeline. I made a list of every conversation I could remember having with Kendra and Keith during the divorce. I went through old texts. I looked at dates. Things started clicking into place that I hadn't noticed before. Kendra had been the one to suggest couples counseling back in January. At the time, I thought she was trying to save my marriage. Looking back, I think she was setting up the idea that Keith and I had problems. She was planting seeds with mutual friends that we were struggling. When she told me about seeing Keith with another woman in February, she made sure not to identify herself. She acted like a concerned friend reporting something she'd witnessed. The whole confession seemed designed to make me confront Keith without suspecting her. During the divorce, Kendra was always around. She helped with everything. She knew every detail of the proceedings. She knew when papers were being filed and when things would be finalized. She was the one who suggested I take a break from social media in late April. She said it would help my mental health. The engagement announcement went up the day after the divorce was final. If I'd still been on social media, I would have seen it immediately. The break she suggested gave them time to control the narrative before I could respond. I reached out to some mutual friends to ask what they'd been told. My friend Jessica said Kendra had called her in March. Kendra told her that Keith and I were separating and that I was really supportive of Keith moving on. She said I wanted everyone to be happy and that I was already seeing someone new myself. That last part was a complete lie. I haven't been on a date since my marriage ended. Another friend, Mark, said Kendra had mentioned at a dinner party in April that Keith and I were planning to stay friends after the divorce. She made it sound like everything was amicable and planned. My cousin Rachel reached out after seeing my first post. She said Kendra had messaged her about a month before the divorce was finalized. The message warned her that I might reach out with a different version of events. Kendra told her I was having a hard time accepting that the marriage was over and that I might try to make Keith look bad. She said I was struggling mentally and might rewrite what actually happened. Rachel said she didn't think much of it at the time but now it seemed like Kendra was protecting herself before I could tell anyone the truth. I decided to talk to Beth, Keith's sister. We met at a coffee shop downtown. She seemed uncomfortable when she sat down. I asked her directly when she found out about Keith and Kendra. She said Keith brought Kendra to Christmas dinner at their parents' house. I wasn't at that dinner. Keith told me his family was doing a small gathering and I should spend Christmas with my own family. I went to my parents' house in Ohio. Beth said Keith and Kendra arrived together. They sat next to each other at dinner. His mom kept making comments about how nice it was to see Keith happy again. Beth said she assumed I knew and had agreed to it. She said everyone in the family thought we'd separated earlier than we actually did. I asked about the engagement ring. Beth got quiet. She said it was their grandmother's ring. Keith had asked their mom for it in early April. He was still living in our house in April. We were still married. Beth said she thought it was strange timing but Keith told her we were basically already divorced and just waiting on paperwork. She apologized for not reaching out to me sooner. She said she felt sick thinking about how all of this looked now. After talking to Beth, I contacted Keith's ex-girlfriend from college. Her name is Amy. We'd met a few times at alumni events over the years. I sent her a message asking if she'd be willing to talk. She called me the next day. She said she wasn't surprised by what happened. She said Keith had done something similar to her. When they were dating senior year, Keith's roommate's girlfriend started spending a lot of time with them. Her name was Beth. Amy said Beth was always very supportive when Amy and Keith had problems. She'd take Amy's side and tell her Keith wasn't treating her right. After Amy and Keith broke up, Beth and Keith started dating within 2 weeks. Amy said Beth had been at every party and hangout during the last few months of her relationship with Keith. She said looking back, it was obvious they'd been building something while Amy was still in the picture. Amy said she ran into Beth a couple years later. Beth told her she and Keith had broken up. She said Keith had become close with a girl from his gym and the same pattern happened again. Beth had thought she and Keith were solid. Then suddenly he was distant and critical of everything she did. The gym friend was always around being supportive. When Beth and Keith broke up, he was dating the gym friend within a month. Amy said Keith seemed to have a pattern of lining up the next relationship before ending the current one. He always used a mutual friend as the bridge. This information changed how I saw everything. Kendra wasn't some spontaneous love story. She was a strategy. Keith didn't fall for her after our marriage ended. He cultivated her while we were still together. He made her the supportive friend who would help me see the marriage was broken. Then once I was out of the picture, he slid right into place with her. The whole thing was planned. I decided to post about it on Facebook. I wrote out the actual timeline. I included dates. I explained that I never gave anyone my blessing. I never knew about Keith and Kendra until after the divorce was final. I said that Kendra had been lying to our mutual friends for months to cover her tracks. I posted it on a Saturday morning. Within an hour, I had over 50 comments. People were apologizing for believing the story Kendra and Keith had spread. Some were angry they'd been lied to. A few people who'd been at Keith's family Christmas came forward and said they'd thought it was weird I wasn't there. Several friends said they'd felt confused by Kendra's version of events but had trusted her because she was my best friend. Kendra sent me a long message that night. She said I was trying to ruin her life because I couldn't handle that Keith had moved on. She said I was bitter and jealous. She said the reason my marriage failed was because I was too controlling and couldn't let Keith be himself. She said she'd tried to help me during the divorce and this was how I repaid her. She said Keith loved her in a way he never loved me. She blocked me after sending it. Update 2: Things have been complicated since my last update. After I made the Facebook post, there was a lot of fallout in our friend group. Some people sided with me. Some stayed neutral. A few actually defended Kendra and Keith. The ones who defended them said that people fall in love and you can't control when it happens. They said even if the timing was bad, Kendra and Keith deserved to be happy. I stopped talking to those people. My parents drove down from Ohio the week after everything blew up online. My mom stayed with me for 10 days. She helped sort through the house. We packed up anything that reminded me of Keith or Kendra. There were pictures from vacations we'd all taken together. Kendra was in at least half of our wedding photos. My mom put all of it in boxes and stored them in the garage. She didn't throw anything away but she got it out of sight. The house sold faster than I expected. A young couple with a baby bought it. The closing was in July. I moved into an apartment on the west side of town. It's smaller but I don't need much space. Charlie came with me. I got a lawyer to finalize everything with the house sale and make sure Keith couldn't come back later claiming I owed him anything. The lawyer said the divorce settlement was clean and I didn't have anything to worry about. I ran into Kendra in August. I was at the grocery store on a Sunday morning. She was in the produce section. We made eye contact. She didn't look away. She walked right up to me. She said we needed to talk. I told her there was nothing to talk about. She said I was being childish. She said what happened between her and Keith was real and I needed to accept it. She said she never meant to hurt me but she couldn't ignore her feelings. I asked her when exactly those feelings started. She didn't answer. She said I was twisting things to make her look bad. I walked away. Keith sent me an email in September. He said he heard I was spreading lies about him and Kendra. He said if I didn't stop, he'd talk to a lawyer about defamation. I forwarded the email to my lawyer. She said nothing I'd posted was defamatory because it was all true. She sent him a response saying that if he contacted me again, we'd consider it harassment. I haven't heard from him since. Beth reached out again last month. She said things were tense in their family. Her parents had started asking questions about the timeline after my Facebook post. They'd realized the dates didn't add up the way Keith had told them. Keith's dad apparently confronted him about bringing Kendra to Christmas while he was still married to me. Keith said it wasn't a big deal because we were separated in everything but paperwork. His dad said that wasn't how marriage worked. Beth said her parents stopped talking to Keith for a few weeks. They eventually started speaking again but things were strained. Kendra and Keith got married in October. It was a small ceremony. I heard about it from Lenora. She said only immediate family was there. None of our mutual friends were invited. Beth didn't go. She told Keith she couldn't support the marriage knowing how it started. Kendra's parents were there but Lenora said she heard Kendra's mom had expressed concerns about how fast everything was moving. I've been doing okay. I got a promotion at work in September. It came with a raise and better hours. I've been going to a gym near my apartment. I joined a book club that meets on Wednesday nights. I'm trying to build a life that doesn't revolve around what happened. Some days are harder than others. I still think about the 12 years of friendship with Kendra and wonder if any of it was real. I think about the 7 years with Keith and try to figure out what I missed. Charlie is doing well. He adjusted to the apartment quickly. There's a dog park 2 blocks away. I take him there most mornings before work. I've met some of the other dog owners. It's nice to have casual conversations with people who don't know anything about my divorce or what happened after. Update 3: I'm writing this final update because people keep messaging me asking how things turned out. It's been almost a year since everything fell apart. I've had time to process most of it. I don't think about Keith and Kendra every day anymore. Some weeks I don't think about them at all. In November, I got a message from Beth. She was the girl Amy told me about who dated Keith after her. Beth said she'd heard what happened through mutual friends. She said she wanted to tell me something. She said when she and Keith broke up, he told her the same things he probably told me. That they'd grown apart. That the relationship had run its course. That he cared about her but wasn't in love with her anymore. She said within a month of their breakup, she found out Keith was dating someone else. The girl from his gym. Beth said she'd felt crazy at the time because Keith had insisted there was no one else. She said it messed with her head for months trying to figure out what she'd done wrong. Beth said she wanted to warn me that Keith would do it again. She said the pattern wouldn't stop with Kendra. She said eventually Keith would start feeling trapped or bored and he'd find someone new to line up. She said the person always started as a friend. Someone who would support his complaints about his current relationship. Someone who would validate his feelings and make him think he deserved better. She said by the time the breakup happened, the new relationship was already built. I thanked Beth for reaching out, but I told her I didn't care what Keith did anymore. Whether he repeated the pattern with Kendra or not wasn't my problem. I'd spent enough time thinking about him. Kendra tried to contact me in December. She sent me a message through Lenora. She wanted to meet up and talk. She said enough time had passed and we should try to work things out. Lenora asked if I wanted to meet her. I said no. Lenora told Kendra I wasn't interested. Kendra sent another message saying she missed our friendship. She said what happened with Keith didn't have to end what we had. She said we'd been friends for over a decade and that should mean something. I didn't respond. I spent Christmas with my parents in Ohio again. My sister came with her husband. It was quiet and normal. No drama. No tension. Just family dinner and watching movies. It felt good. On Christmas Eve, my mom asked if I was doing okay. I said I was. She asked if I missed my old life. I said sometimes I missed the idea of what I thought my life was going to be. But I didn't miss Keith. And I didn't miss Kendra. She nodded and didn't push it further. I started dating someone in January. His name is Mark. He works in architecture. We met at the dog park. His dog and Charlie get along. We've been on 5 dates so far. It's casual. I'm not rushing into anything. He doesn't know the full story about Keith and Kendra yet. I'll tell him eventually, but right now it's nice to just have something simple. The house sold its worth and I got my half. I put most of it into savings. I used some to furnish the apartment and take a trip to visit a friend in Colorado. I haven't decided what to do with the rest yet. Maybe a bigger place eventually. Maybe just keeping it for security. I'm not in a hurry to figure it out. I haven't seen Kendra since the grocery store. I haven't seen Keith at all. I heard through Beth that they moved to a different part of town. Somewhere near the lake. Beth and I get coffee every few weeks now. She apologized again for not questioning things sooner. I told her she didn't have anything to apologize for. Keith lied to his whole family. That wasn't her fault. I don't have a dramatic ending to this. Kendra and Keith are married. They're living their life. I'm living mine. I don't wish them well, but I don't wish them harm either. I just don't think about them much anymore. The friendship with Kendra is over. There's no fixing it. Even if she realized she was wrong, which I don't think she ever will, too much damage was done. The trust is gone. The history we had doesn't erase what she did. Someone asked me in a message if I thought Kendra actually loved Keith or if she just liked the idea of winning. I don't know. Maybe she convinced herself it was real. Maybe she's happy with him. Maybe Beth is right and the pattern will repeat. It doesn't matter to me either way. Their relationship isn't something I need to understand or analyze. It's just something that happened and now I'm moving forward from it. I kept Charlie. I got the promotion. I have an apartment I like and a life that's mine. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I was completely cut out of my family's 25-year restaurant legacy because my sister had a business degree. When her poor business choices led to massive debt and closure, she had the nerve to beg me for $80,000. I never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am at 3 a.m. trying to make sense of what happened with my family. My sister Kate, 29F, and I, 32M, grew up in a family that owned a small Italian restaurant. Our parents, especially our mom, always talked about how the restaurant would stay in the family. Both Kate and I worked there during high school and college, learning every part of the business from washing dishes to managing the books. Our mom passed away when I was 26 and Kate was 23. Dad was devastated and struggled to keep the restaurant running without her. She had been the heart of the place, greeting customers and managing the front of house while Dad handled the kitchen. After Mom died, the restaurant felt different. Dad started drinking more and customers began complaining about the food quality and service. When Dad decided to retire 2 years ago, Kate and I both assumed we'd inherit the restaurant together. We had talked about it for years. I had been working as a sous chef at another restaurant, gaining experience, while Kate had gotten her business degree and worked in restaurant management. We seemed like the perfect team to take over. Instead, Dad announced that Kate would inherit the entire restaurant. His reasoning was that she had the business degree and that I could find work anywhere as a chef. He said the restaurant needed someone with formal business training to survive. Kate didn't argue with this decision. She just nodded and started making plans. I was shocked. I had put in just as much time at the restaurant as Kate. I knew every recipe, every supplier, every regular customer. But Dad had made up his mind. Kate tried to soften the blow by offering me a job as head chef, but it wasn't the same as being an owner. I would be working for my little sister in the place where I grew up. I turned down her job offer and found work at an upscale restaurant across town. The pay was better anyway, and I didn't have to deal with the stress of a failing family business. Kate took over the restaurant in January last year. At first, she seemed excited about the changes she wanted to make. She renovated the dining room, updated the menu, and hired new staff. She borrowed money from the bank to fund these improvements, using the restaurant and its property as collateral. Dad had moved to Arizona by then, so he wasn't around to see what was happening. The renovations took longer than expected and cost twice what Kate had budgeted. The restaurant was closed for 3 months, which meant no income during that period. When it reopened, many of the regular customers had found other places to eat. The new menu was more expensive, and some longtime customers complained that their favorite dishes were gone. Kate called me several times during this period, asking for advice about recipes and suppliers. I helped when I could, but I was busy with my own job. She seemed stressed but confident that things would work out once the restaurant got back on its feet. By fall, it was clear that the restaurant was in trouble. Kate had borrowed additional money to keep it running, but the customer base never fully recovered. The new upscale approach didn't fit the neighborhood, and the higher prices drove away families who had been coming for years. I heard about the problems from other people in the restaurant industry. Word travels fast in a small city, and everyone knew that the old family restaurant was struggling. Some former employees reached out to me, asking if I knew what was really going on. In December, Kate finally called and asked if we could meet. She picked a coffee shop instead of the restaurant, which told me everything I needed to know about how bad things were. She looked tired and had lost weight. She explained that the restaurant was losing money every month and that she owed more than she could pay back. Then she asked if I would consider buying into the business as a partner. She needed an immediate injection of cash to cover the loan payments and operating expenses. She offered me a 40% stake for $80,000, which was most of my savings. I asked her why she thought I would want to invest in a failing business that she had specifically excluded me from. She said she realized she needed my expertise and that we could turn things around together. She promised that I would have equal say in all decisions going forward. The conversation lasted 2 hours. Kate showed me financial statements and loan documents. The restaurant owed $150,000 to the bank, plus additional money to suppliers and credit card companies. The monthly expenses were higher than the income, and there was no clear plan to increase revenue. I told her I needed time to think about it. Part of me wanted to help because it was our family's restaurant and Mom would have been heartbroken to see it fail. But another part of me remembered how easily Kate had accepted inheriting the whole business when she could have insisted on sharing it with me. Over the next week, I talked to my girlfriend Sarah, 28F, about the situation. Sarah pointed out that Kate was only offering me partnership now because she was desperate. If the restaurant had been successful, Kate never would have shared ownership with me. Sarah also reminded me that I had been building my own career and savings while Kate was making poor business decisions. I also talked to my uncle Mike, who had worked in restaurants his whole life. He looked at the financial statements Kate had shown me and said the restaurant was probably beyond saving. The debt was too high relative to the revenue, and the neighborhood couldn't support the upscale concept Kate had implemented. After thinking it over, I decided not to invest in the restaurant. I called Kate and explained that I couldn't risk my savings on a business that was already failing. I offered to help her find a buyer or to work with her on closing the restaurant in an orderly way, but I wouldn't put my own money into it. Kate didn't take this well. She accused me of being bitter about not inheriting the restaurant and said I was letting our family legacy die out of spite. She hung up on me and didn't return my calls for several days. The next time I heard from Kate was through our cousin Lisa, 25F, who said Kate was telling everyone that I had refused to help save the family business. Kate was making it sound like I was the bad guy for not bailing her out after she had excluded me from ownership in the first place. This whole situation has created a rift in our extended family. Some relatives think I should help Kate because family comes first. Others understand why I don't want to throw my money away on a failing business. Dad called me from Arizona and said he was disappointed that his children couldn't work together to save the restaurant. I keep going back and forth on whether I made the right decision. The restaurant has been in our family for 25 years, and it's where I learned to cook. But Kate made it clear that she didn't want me as a true partner until she needed my money. Now she's expecting me to risk everything to save a business that she ran into the ground. I'm not sure what's going to happen next. Kate is still trying to keep the restaurant open, but I don't see how she can make the loan payments much longer. Part of me thinks I should try to help her one more time, but I also think she needs to face the consequences of her decisions. Am I wrong for not investing in the restaurant? Should family loyalty override business sense? I could use some outside perspective on this whole mess. Update 1. It's been 6 weeks since my original post, and things have gotten much worse. Thank you to everyone who responded and helped me see that I made the right choice by not investing in Kate's failing restaurant. The restaurant closed permanently 3 weeks ago. Kate couldn't make the January loan payment, and the bank started foreclosure proceedings. She had to lay off all the employees and turn over the keys. The equipment was sold at auction, and the building is now empty with a for lease sign in the window. I found out about the closure from a former employee who texted me. Kate hadn't called to tell me what was happening. I drove by the restaurant that evening and saw her car in the parking lot. The lights were off inside, but I could see her sitting at one of the tables in the dark. I went inside and found her packing up personal items from the office. She had boxes of old photos, awards, and mementos from when our parents ran the place. She barely looked up when I came in. I asked if there was anything I could do to help, and she just laughed bitterly. She said it was too late for help and that she was trying to figure out what to tell our dad. He didn't know how bad things had gotten because she had been lying to him about the restaurant's finances. Kate then started blaming me for the restaurant's failure. She said that if I had invested the $80,000 when she asked, she could have kept the place open long enough to turn things around. She claimed that I had let our family legacy die because I was too selfish to help. I reminded her that the restaurant was losing money every month even before she asked for my investment. The $80,000 would have delayed the inevitable by maybe 6 months, but it wouldn't have solved the fundamental problems. She had overextended herself with the renovations and borrowed too much money against a declining business. Kate wouldn't listen to reason. She said I was making excuses and that a real brother would have done whatever it took to save the family business. She accused me of being jealous that Dad had chosen her to inherit the restaurant and said I was getting revenge by watching her fail. This conversation went on for over an hour, with Kate getting more upset and accusatory. She brought up everything from childhood disputes to recent family gatherings, trying to paint me as someone who had always been against her. It was clear that she had been building up this narrative in her mind to avoid taking responsibility for her own mistakes. I finally left when she started crying and screaming at me. There was no point in continuing the conversation when she was determined to make me the villain in her story. The next day, Kate called our dad and told him that the restaurant had closed. According to my uncle Mike, who talked to Dad afterward, Kate told him that I had refused to help and that the restaurant could have been saved if I had been willing to invest. She didn't mention her poor business decisions or the fact that she had already borrowed far more than the restaurant was worth. Dad called me that evening and asked why I hadn't helped Kate save the restaurant. I explained the whole situation, including Kate's decision to exclude me from ownership and her unrealistic financial projections. I showed him the loan documents and financial statements that Kate had given me, which proved that the restaurant was already beyond saving when she asked for my investment. Dad was quiet for a long time after I explained everything. He finally admitted that he hadn't realized how much debt Kate had taken on or how badly the restaurant was performing. He said Kate had been telling him that business was improving and that she just needed to get through a rough patch. But even after understanding the full situation, Dad said he was disappointed that his children couldn't find a way to work together. He seemed to think that Kate and I should have been able to overcome our differences for the sake of the family business. He didn't seem to grasp that Kate had made fundamental business errors that no amount of cooperation could have fixed. Since then, Kate has been telling her version of events to anyone who will listen. She's posting on social media about losing the family restaurant and hinting that she was betrayed by people who should have supported her. She's not mentioning me by name, but everyone in our family knows what she's referring to. Several relatives have reached out to me asking what really happened. I've been honest about the situation, but I can tell that some people think I should have helped Kate regardless of the business prospects. There's this idea that family loyalty should override financial common sense. The worst part is that Kate has convinced herself that she was a victim of circumstances beyond her control. She's not acknowledging that she chose to take on massive debt, alienate longtime customers, and exclude me from ownership until she needed my money. In her mind, the restaurant failed because I didn't rescue her, not because she made poor decisions. I've tried to reach out to Kate a few times since the restaurant closed, but she won't return my calls or texts. Mutual friends tell me that she's looking for a new job but is having trouble because everyone in the local restaurant industry knows about the failure of our family's place. Sarah keeps reminding me that I made the right choice by not throwing my money away on a doomed business. She points out that if I had invested the $80,000, I would have lost it all and Kate would probably still be blaming me for not investing even more money. I know Sarah is right, but it's still hard to see our family's restaurant gone forever. That place represented 25 years of our parents' work, and now it's just an empty building. Kate's poor management destroyed something that our mom built with her own hands. I don't know if Kate and I will ever have a normal relationship again. She seems determined to blame me for everything that went wrong, and I can't take responsibility for her bad business decisions. The restaurant might have failed anyway even if Dad had left it to both of us, but at least then we would have shared the responsibility and the loss. For now, I'm focusing on my own career and trying to stay out of the family drama. But it's hard when relatives keep asking me to explain what happened or to make peace with Kate. Some things can't be fixed, especially when one person refuses to acknowledge their own mistakes. Update 2. It's been 4 months since my last update, and I discovered something that changes everything about Kate's financial situation. What I found out makes her blaming me for the restaurant's failure even more infuriating. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from my uncle Mike. He had been helping Dad with some financial paperwork and noticed some irregularities in Dad's bank statements. There were several large withdrawals from Dad's retirement account that Dad couldn't explain. The withdrawals totaled about $35,000 over the past 8 months. Dad has early signs of memory problems, so at first we thought he might have forgotten about the withdrawals. But when Mike and I went through the paperwork more carefully, we found that someone had been using Dad's online banking information to transfer money to different accounts. The transfers were all made during times when Kate had visited Dad in Arizona. She had been going to see him every 6 weeks or so, supposedly to check on his health and help him with household tasks. Dad had been happy about these visits because he thought Kate was being a caring daughter. Mike and I confronted Dad with the evidence. He was confused at first, then became upset when he realized what had happened. Kate had apparently convinced him to give her his banking passwords by saying she wanted to help him manage his finances online. She told him that it would be easier for her to pay his bills and monitor his accounts from her home. Dad had trusted Kate completely and didn't think to check his account statements regularly. He lived simply in Arizona and didn't spend much money, so he didn't notice when thousands of dollars went missing from his retirement savings. When we looked at where the stolen money had gone, it became clear that Kate had been using it to prop up the restaurant. The timing of the withdrawals matched with periods when the restaurant was behind on loan payments or needed money for operating expenses. She had been stealing from our elderly father to keep her failing business open for a few extra months. This meant that Kate had access to $35,000 in cash during the same period when she was begging me to invest $80,000 to save the restaurant. She was telling me that she had exhausted all other options and that my investment was the only way to keep the family business alive. Meanwhile, she was secretly draining Dad's retirement account to cover her debts. Mike and I decided that we had to tell Dad the full extent of what Kate had done. Dad was devastated. He kept asking why Kate would steal from him when he would have helped her if she had just asked honestly. He couldn't understand why she had lied to him while taking money that he needed for his medical expenses and living costs. Dad wanted to call Kate immediately and demand an explanation, but Mike and I convinced him to wait until we had gathered all the evidence. We printed out bank statements and made copies of all the suspicious transactions. We also contacted Dad's bank to report the unauthorized access to his accounts. The bank told us that since Kate had Dad's passwords and had been given access to his accounts, it would be difficult to prove that the withdrawals were unauthorized. Dad would need to file a police report and press charges against Kate if he wanted the bank to investigate further. Dad struggled with the decision to involve the police. Kate was still his daughter, and he didn't want to see her arrested. But he also needed that money for his retirement and medical care. Mike and I told him that Kate had to face consequences for what she had done, especially since she was still blaming me for the restaurant's failure. After 3 days of thinking about it, Dad decided to call Kate and give her a chance to explain before involving the police. The phone call did not go well. Kate initially denied taking any money from Dad's accounts. When Dad read her the specific transaction dates and amounts, she changed her story and said she had only borrowed the money temporarily. She claimed she was planning to pay it back once she got on her feet financially. Dad asked her why she hadn't told him what she was doing, and Kate said she didn't want to worry him. She insisted that she had only taken the money because she was trying to save the family restaurant and that everyone would have benefited if the business had succeeded. When Dad pointed out that she had been begging me for money while secretly stealing from him, Kate became defensive. She said that I had more money than I needed and that Dad's retirement account was going to be inherited by his children anyway. She acted like taking the money early was somehow justified. The conversation ended with Kate hanging up on Dad when he told her that she needed to return the money immediately. Dad was shaking after the call and said he didn't recognize the person Kate had become. 2 days later, Kate called me directly. She was crying and said that Dad was threatening to call the police unless she paid back the money she had borrowed. She asked if I would lend her the $35,000 to repay Dad and avoid criminal charges. I couldn't believe that Kate was still trying to get money from me after everything that had happened. I told her that stealing from our elderly father was unforgivable and that I wouldn't help her avoid the consequences of her actions. She had been lying to our entire family while draining Dad's retirement savings. Kate then tried a different approach. She said that if Dad pressed charges, it would destroy our family and make everything public. She claimed that she was only trying to protect the family legacy by keeping the restaurant open and that everyone was being unfair to her. I reminded Kate that she had caused all of these problems by making terrible business decisions and then compounding them by stealing from Dad. She had been blaming me for months while knowing that she had access to stolen money that she could have used instead of asking for my investment. Kate got angry and said that I was being self-righteous and that I had never cared about the family business anyway. She accused me of wanting to see her punished and said that I was enjoying watching her life fall apart. She hung up on me just like she had hung up on Dad. Dad ultimately decided to file a police report. He said that Kate needed professional help and that maybe facing legal consequences would force her to get the treatment she needed. He also changed all of his passwords and moved his remaining retirement savings to a new account that Kate couldn't access. The police took Dad's statement and said they would investigate, but they warned him that financial crimes between family members were complicated and often difficult to prosecute. They suggested that Dad might want to consider civil court if he wanted to recover the stolen money. Kate hasn't contacted any of us since I refused to lend her the money to repay Dad. I heard through mutual friends that she moved out of her apartment and is staying with a friend in another city. She apparently lost her new job when her employer found out about the police investigation. I feel terrible for Dad, who trusted Kate completely and is now dealing with both financial and emotional betrayal. He keeps saying that he failed as a parent and wondering how Kate became someone who would steal from her own father. Mike and I are trying to help him understand that Kate's choices were her own and not a reflection of his parenting. Looking back, I'm grateful that I didn't invest in Kate's restaurant. If I had given her the $80,000 she requested, I would have lost that money just like Dad lost his $35,000. Kate would have spent my investment just as recklessly as she spent the money she stole from Dad, and the restaurant still would have failed. The hardest part is realizing that Kate was lying to me during our entire conversation about saving the restaurant. She was acting desperate and claiming that my investment was the only option, while secretly she had already stolen tens of thousands of dollars from our father. She was manipulating both Dad and me at the same time. I don't know if Kate will face any serious legal consequences for what she did. But at least now Dad and I know the truth about what kind of person she has become. The sister I grew up with never would have stolen from her own father, but apparently that person doesn't exist anymore. Update 3, it's been 8 months since I last updated, and I wanted to close out this story since people have been asking what happened with Kate and the criminal charges. Kate was arrested in July on charges of elder financial abuse and identity theft. The district attorney's office decided to prosecute the case because Dad's age and Kate's abuse of his trust made it particularly serious. Kate spent 2 days in jail before her friend posted bail. The legal process took 4 months. Kate hired a lawyer who tried to argue that she had permission to access Dad's accounts and that the money transfers were loans rather than theft. Dad had to testify about giving Kate his banking passwords and explain that he never authorized her to take money for her restaurant. In November, Kate accepted a plea bargain rather than go to trial. She pleaded guilty to 1 count of financial elder abuse and was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and ordered to pay restitution of $35,000 to Dad. She also has to attend financial counseling and can't have access to anyone else's financial accounts during her probation. Kate was lucky to avoid jail time. The prosecutor told Dad that first-time offenders in financial crimes often get probation if they agree to make restitution. Kate's lawyer emphasized that she was going through financial stress and wasn't a career criminal. The restitution payment was supposed to be made within 60 days of sentencing, but Kate claimed she couldn't afford to pay the full amount immediately. The court arranged a payment plan where she has to pay Dad $500 per month for the next 6 years. Dad isn't happy about waiting that long to get his money back, but at least he's getting something. Kate moved to Portland after her sentencing. She found a job at a chain restaurant and is apparently living in a studio apartment. She hasn't contacted Dad or me since the plea hearing. The only way we know anything about her life is through our cousin Lisa, who stays in touch with Kate through social media. According to Lisa, Kate is still portraying herself as a victim on social media. She posts about starting over after losing everything and talks about how difficult it is to rebuild your life after making mistakes. She never mentions stealing from Dad or lying to the family. Lisa says Kate's posts make it sound like she was just unlucky in business rather than someone who committed financial crimes. Dad has been struggling with depression since Kate's arrest. He keeps blaming himself for trusting her with his financial information and says he should have been more careful. His doctor prescribed antidepressants and suggested counseling, but Dad doesn't want to talk to strangers about his family problems. The worst part for Dad is that several of his neighbors in Arizona found out about Kate's arrest through local news coverage. Financial elder abuse is apparently a big problem in retirement communities, so the story got attention as an example of how seniors need to protect themselves from family members. Dad was embarrassed that everyone knew his daughter had stolen from him. Dad also had to deal with financial stress because of the missing money. He had to delay some medical procedures and reduce his monthly expenses until Kate starts making the restitution payments. Mike and I offered to help him financially, but Dad was too proud to accept money from us when he needed it because of Kate's theft. The extended family has mostly sided with Dad and me in this situation. Most relatives understood that Kate had crossed a line by stealing from an elderly parent, especially after losing the family restaurant through her own poor decisions. But a few family members think Dad was too harsh in pressing criminal charges against his own daughter. Our Aunt Susan, who lives in Portland near Kate, has been the most critical. She thinks the family should have handled this privately and that involving the police made everything worse. Susan argues that Kate was already suffering enough from losing the restaurant and that criminal charges were excessive punishment. I had a heated argument with Susan at Thanksgiving dinner. She kept saying that families need to forgive each other and that Dad should have been more understanding of Kate's desperation. I pointed out that Kate had been stealing from Dad while lying to everyone else, and that her actions were criminal regardless of her motivations. Susan then brought up my refusal to invest in Kate's restaurant and suggested that Kate might not have stolen from Dad if I had been willing to help her. This made me furious because it was the same blame shifting that Kate had been doing. I told Susan that Kate's crimes were her own responsibility and that I wasn't going to be made the villain for refusing to throw money away on a failing business. The argument ended with Susan leaving dinner early and not speaking to me since. Dad was upset that the gathering was ruined, but he supported my position that Kate's theft was inexcusable regardless of the circumstances. Mike has been the most supportive family member throughout this whole situation. He helped Dad with the legal process and made sure Dad understood his options for recovering the stolen money. Mike also helped Dad improve his financial security by setting up new accounts and teaching him better online safety practices. I've been thinking a lot about how different things might have been if Dad had left the restaurant to both Kate and me instead of giving it all to her. Maybe Kate would have made better decisions if she had to consult with a partner. Or maybe she would have found a way to mess up the business even with my involvement. But I also think Kate's problems go deeper than just bad business judgment. Someone who would steal from their elderly father while blaming other family members for their problems has serious character issues that wouldn't be fixed by different inheritance arrangements. The restaurant building is still empty. I drive by it sometimes when I'm in that part of town, and it's depressing to see our family's legacy reduced to a vacant storefront. A few people have inquired about leasing the space, but the location apparently has a reputation now as a place where restaurants fail. I've been promoted at my own restaurant and am now the executive chef. The owners are talking about opening a second location and want me to help design the kitchen and menu. It's the kind of opportunity I might not have had if I had gotten tied up in Kate's failing business. Sarah and I got engaged last month. We're planning a small wedding next year, and Dad will walk me down the aisle. Kate obviously won't be invited, which makes me sad but is necessary under the circumstances. I can't have someone at my wedding who stole from my father and spent months blaming me for her own failures. Looking back on this whole situation, I'm glad I trusted my instincts and didn't invest in Kate's restaurant. I would have lost my money and probably been blamed when the business failed anyway. Kate was already stealing from Dad when she asked for my investment, which shows that she was willing to deceive everyone in the family to avoid facing reality about her failing business. I hope Kate eventually gets her life together and finds a way to repair some of the damage she's caused. But I don't expect to have a relationship with her again. Trust, once broken this badly, doesn't really come back. She made choices that hurt our entire family, and those choices have consequences that go beyond legal punishment. Dad is doing better now that Kate is making the monthly restitution payments. He's also found a senior center where he plays cards and has made some new friends. He doesn't talk about Kate much anymore, but I know he still grieves for the daughter he thought he knew. This whole experience taught me that family loyalty has limits. I was willing to help Kate find buyers for the restaurant or assist with an orderly closure, but I wasn't willing to enable her poor decision-making by throwing money at an unsolvable problem. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their actions rather than rescuing them from situations they created. I miss the sister I grew up with, but that person seems to be gone. The Kate who exists now is someone who steals from elderly parents and blames other people for her problems. I can't have a relationship with that person, even if we share the same DNA and childhood memories. I'm closing this chapter of my life and focusing on my future with Sarah and my career. Sometimes families break apart, and there's nothing you can do to fix them. All you can do is make sure you don't get pulled down with the people who are determined to self-destruct.